Greetings and thank you for being here. Your time means a lot, and if you choose to subscribe to the channel, it would go a long way in supporting what I do. Let's get started. I'm Ryan. There was no way for my wife, Rebecca, to predict the reaction her comment would spark, especially since her sister was living with us at the time. When Rebecca admitted that she rarely felt genuinely aroused, what her sister said in response left the whole house in stunned silence. My path to meeting Rebecca wasn't exactly modern. It came by way of a subtle matchmaking effort from my aunt, who believed we'd make a compatible pair. She knew both of us well enough to think we might actually click. She spoke glowingly about Rebecca, describing her as steady, compassionate, and emotionally balanced. But she did give me one warning. Rebecca was extremely private. What she meant was that Rebecca kept to herself. She wasn't one to socialize or engage in idle chit-chat. She avoided crowds and rarely spoke unless she had to. According to my aunt, this deep-seated introversion might have been why none of Rebecca's past relationships had lasted. She didn't thrive in loud or energetic environments and found it hard to relate to people who expected liveliness or open affection. So why did my aunt think I'd be a suitable match? Because I'm quiet too. While I wouldn't call myself antisocial, I've never been drawn to large gatherings. I enjoy the calm of a quiet evening far more than any party. I can sit in total silence with someone for hours and still feel completely connected. My relatives often tease me about that. Maybe they're right, but I've always valued stillness over noise. To my aunt, putting two quiet souls together seemed like a recipe for peace. No friction, no unnecessary drama. When I first agreed to meet Rebecca, I wasn't expecting much. I wasn't nervous or particularly excited. I just figured I'd see how things played out. We had our first meeting over coffee. Honestly, it was a little awkward. We talked here and there, but long silences hung between our words. Neither of us tried to force conversation. Some might have called the interaction dull, but to me it felt refreshingly honest. She didn't try to impress me. I didn't try to impress her. We just let the moment be what it was. When we parted ways, we both agreed we'd like to see each other again. From there, things developed gradually. No big emotional declarations, just consistent, modest gestures and thoughtful conversations. Over the next half-year, we slowly began to open up. I learned that she was passionate about classical music and had no patience for reality TV. She loved routines and felt most at peace during overcast, rainy days. She found out that I liked taking long, aimless walks and that I had a borderline obsessive habit of alphabetizing my bookshelves. Bit by bit, we found our rhythm. Nothing about our connection was rushed. Eventually, I asked her to be in a relationship with me. I can still recall the look of uncertainty on her face. She asked, quite seriously, "What if you stop caring in a few weeks?" I smiled and told her she didn't need to change a thing, that I liked her just the way she was. Our dating life was uneventful, but in the best way. No dramatic highs or crushing lows, just a quiet understanding and mutual respect. Our friends and relatives supported us. They admired the calm between us. It wasn't flashy, but it was steady and real. Eventually, when the moment felt right, we got married. We believed that knowing each other so well would make the transition to married life seamless. We thought it would be easy. We were wrong. There were things we hadn't accounted for. I assumed our strong foundation would naturally evolve into a deeper emotional and physical connection. I believed marriage would open new doors between us. More vulnerability, more closeness, both emotionally and physically. But I had misread the situation. Even when we were dating, intimacy was always somewhat strained. At the time, I didn't let myself dwell on it. There was so much else that worked. But truthfully, every attempt at closeness felt met with hesitation. When I initiated touch, she'd often recoil or freeze. And when she initiated, it seemed mechanical, like she was completing a task, not expressing affection. There was always an excuse. She was tired, not in the mood, under stress. The timing was never quite right. I convinced myself it was just the early-stage awkwardness that would pass in time. So I waited. Once we were married, I was certain things would shift. I thought the commitment would break down those last walls. I was ready for that intimacy. She wasn't. The same reasons remained: exhaustion, disconnection, lack of interest. Over time, it started to feel like I was asking for something she didn't want to give. We became physically intimate rarely, sometimes not even once a month. And when it did happen, it felt perfunctory, like something she did out of obligation rather than desire. This emotional gap hurt more than I expected, especially since we had talked about starting a family someday. We both dreamed of a house filled with love and laughter. But how could that happen when she seemed so uncomfortable with even the smallest touch? I didn't want to pressure her or make her feel cornered. So I went about trying to solve it quietly, the way I think many men do. I read books on relationships, watched endless advice videos, tried everything I could think of to revive the spark. I planned date nights, made dinner reservations at her favorite spots, even surprised her with short weekend getaways, hoping to reconnect. Sometimes she seemed appreciative. She'd smile and say thank you, but more often than not, it changed nothing between us. For her, connection meant sitting together in silence watching TV. For me, it meant physical closeness and shared affection. She rarely met me there. Slowly, I began to wonder, was the problem me? Things took an unexpected turn when Rebecca's sister moved into our home. That happened about 2 years into our marriage. I was still clinging to the belief that with enough time and care, things might improve. One night, Rebecca told me that her sister was going through a difficult period. Her marriage had fallen apart, and she had nowhere to go. I already knew a bit about her ex. His reputation for being volatile and controlling wasn't a secret. The family had seen the warning signs, but when someone insists everything's fine, there's only so much you can do. Eventually, the situation escalated into outright abuse. Following the divorce, her sister tried to hold things together. She managed to keep an apartment during the legal process, but eventually the financial strain became too much. The foreclosure left her without options. Rebecca approached me gently, asking if her sister could stay with us for a while, just until she figured things out. I hesitated, knowing how fragile our routine already felt. But when I saw the concern in Rebecca's eyes, I said yes. Of course, I told her. 2 days later, her sister showed up carrying 2 worn suitcases. She walked in wearing loose jeans, flip-flops, and a hoodie that nearly swallowed her whole. We set her up in the guest room. She hugged Rebecca tightly, then turned to me with a quiet but heartfelt thank you. At the time, I had no idea that her arrival would set off a chain of events that would change everything. The mood in our home shifted. Her sister was Rebecca's opposite in nearly every respect: personality, energy, even how she occupied space. Where Rebecca was composed and contained, her sister was open and unabashed. She didn't filter her words or tiptoe around expectations. She brought a kind of rawness to the house, speaking loudly, cracking jokes, stirring up the quiet air we'd grown used to. Her sarcasm surprised me at first, but I came to see it as her coping mechanism, a way to lighten heavy spaces, even if it meant poking fun at herself. Most days, she walked around the house barefoot, braless, in oversized t-shirts, and somehow it didn't feel out of place. She wasn't trying to seduce anyone or draw attention. She simply existed as she was, unapologetically real. Honestly, I didn't expect to bond with her at all. I thought her being in our house would feel strange, like someone lingering after a party long past its end. But that awkwardness never arrived. We ended up talking far more than I'd imagined, and before I realized it, I was opening up to her in ways that even surprised me. She truly listened. Things between Rebecca and me had been quietly fraying for a while. One quiet evening after dinner, with the house steeped in stillness, I decided it was time to bring it up. I needed to understand what was really happening. Something between us had shifted, especially in that part of our relationship that once felt hopeful, even if fragile. We sat in the living room, a small distance between us. I was working up the nerve to say what had been weighing on me for weeks. Finally, I spoke. "Can we talk about what's been going on with us, especially in the bedroom?" She didn't seem surprised, as if she had sensed this conversation was inevitable and had been preparing herself. She turned just slightly and answered in a soft voice, "Ryan, I'm not sure what's wrong." Her words came quietly, her eyes locked to the floor. Then she added, "I've tried, I really have. But nothing's happening for me when you touch me. My body isn't responding. Not to you, maybe not to anyone." I wasn't ready for that. It sounded like she was confessing something she didn't fully understand herself. I sat there, stunned, unsure how to respond. And before I could find the words, footsteps echoed down the hall. Her sister, who had been staying with us nearly a year, stepped into the room. She looked from Rebecca to me and said with unsettling calm, "Then let me." I froze. At first I assumed it was some offbeat joke. She was known for that sort of dry humor. But the look in her eyes told me she meant every word. I turned to Rebecca, expecting her to lash out or shut it down instantly. But she didn't say a thing. That's when everything began to make sense. Those offhand comments, the playful brushes, the long glances, they hadn't just been teasing, they were signals. And maybe, just maybe, she'd been waiting for this door to open. The room went quiet. I looked at Rebecca again, searching her face for some clue, some emotional flair, but she was unreadable, almost serene. Then she stood and said with no explanation, "Let's go to the bedroom." No anger, no drama. I followed, the air between us thick with something I couldn't name. Once we were alone behind the door, she turned and looked directly at me. Her voice was calm but heavy with meaning. "Are you sleeping with my sister?" I told her no. Nothing had ever happened between us. But as I said it, I could see doubt flicker across her face. She didn't argue. She didn't accuse. She just stared, as if trying to uncover a truth I hadn't spoken. Then she left the room quietly. The next morning, something felt off. Usually, she'd be up early, prepping for her day. But when I was getting ready, I noticed she was still in bed. I asked if she wasn't going to work. Without looking at me, she said she wasn't feeling well. She called it just a little under the weather. I didn't question it. I simply nodded and told her to rest. Her sister wasn't around either, but that didn't feel strange. She often slept in after long nights watching TV or being on the phone. I assumed she was just still in her room. But when I got home that evening, the stillness felt different. The hallway was bare. The guest room door was open wide, and all of her sister's things, every trace, were gone. I called out to Rebecca, asking where she went. She didn't answer right away, staying focused on whatever task she was pretending to be busy with. I asked again, this time more pointedly. Still no response. Eventually it hit me. She hadn't stayed home because she was sick. She stayed to make sure her sister left. She waited until I was gone, then made the move herself. After that, something in Rebecca changed. In the days that followed, she started acting with intention. She'd sit closer to me, rest her head on my shoulder during movies, and ask questions we hadn't asked each other in ages. Her questions were personal, thoughtful. We were talking again, really talking. For the first time in a long time, Rebecca was reaching across the distance between us. She began telling me what made her feel close, what made her feel seen, and what created emotional distance. She didn't wait for me to lead. She offered ideas, initiated conversations. Her voice softened again, in ways I hadn't heard in what felt like forever. It caught me by surprise. I never imagined that such a tense, confusing night would become the turning point. But somehow it was. Maybe her sister's bluntness forced something to surface. Maybe it woke something up inside Rebecca that she hadn't realized had gone numb. I'll never fully understand, I never asked. What I do know is this: nothing is perfect now, but something solid has returned between us. We laugh more. We touch without hesitation. We face the hard things together instead of letting silence grow. And when we lie in bed at night, I don't question whether she wants me close. I know she does because she tells me, because she shows me. I'm grateful for the messy, winding path that led us here. Without it, we might still be living in quiet distance. Maybe this story is a quiet reminder. Sometimes connection isn't gone, it's just waiting to be rebuilt piece by piece. That's where our story settles. Feel free to share your reflections in the comments. Thank you for taking this journey with us. If this resonated with you, take a look at the other videos on the channel. Until next time, be well.